Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Midday News. The news is live from our studios here at Kokomlemle's Joy 99.7 FM in Accra. In Kumasi, we're live on Love 99.5 FM and over 30 affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions, including Jata FM in Karaga, KTU Radio in Koforidua, Kekeli Radio in Ho, and Bewa Radio in Yende. For our global audience, please download the My Joy Online app from Play Store and App Store to listen live. In this edition, Ghana dragged to ECOWAS court over alleged human rights violations of boys featured in Joy News documentary. We have details as they demand prosecution of the soldiers nearly 2 years after Shraj called for disciplinary action.
My head got swollen. They hit me with different things, sticks, metals, and other items.
We have details plus tell you the story of a businessman whose home was burgled by uniform-wearing men.
Then he came and hooked me, began to beat me. He was wearing military dress, began to beat me. What's wrong? What's wrong? He said, I have to pay rent. I said, what rent?
Details of that also. Majority in Parliament describes as troubling the Speaker's refusal to release Medina MP Francis Xavier Susu to police to assist with investigations into alleged offences committed during the demonstration he led. Also, widening budget deficit suggests tougher times next year as government prepares to deal with high interest payments and salaries of public sector workers in the 2022 budget statement. We hear from organised labour, which is not backing down on its demand for more pay.
Our salaries are woefully inadequate. And if the compensation is to reduce the deficit, salaries and compensation should not be one of the factors to look at because salaries and compensations are already very low in this country.
We have details as we build up to the budget presentation on November 17 in sports.
MFA former Black Stars coach CK Akono is demanding $300,000 from the Ghana Football Association for their decision to terminate his contract in September. We have details in 20 minutes.
And much later, students of Sogakofa Senior High School determined to end the 27-year-old NSMQ trophy drought for the Volta and OT regions.
Education is an ornament to prosperity and a refuge to adversity. And learning to learn is a kind of learnership we all need to acquire. So we are here to learn and to win.
Are you a philosopher?
We have more as education authorities in the region have been strategizing on how the two regions can win the trophy this year. You want to stay for that and more on the Midday News with me, Emefa Apau. And this is your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. Many thanks for joining us. And 5 Ghanaian nationals have sued the country at the ECOWAS Court of Justice alleging human rights violations. They are boys who ranged between the ages of 13 to 16 years when the alleged violations occurred in June 2018. The mother of one of the boys is also part of this action, bringing the number of those behind it to 5. They say they were woken up from their sleep and picked up from their respective houses by some soldiers of the Ghana Armed Forces stationed at the Liberation Barracks in Sunyang, who alleged they had stolen a laptop. The boys say they were subjected to beatings for hours. Their story was told in the Joy News documentary as if we weren't human, tracking unresolved police and military brutalities. Listen to how they recounted the ordeal.
Each time I recall what happened, I become very sad. It hurts. I wasn't part of any theft, yet they beat me up.
My head
got swollen. They hit me with different things, sticks, metals, and other items.
No, I'm the boy or medium meeting no dear you want my boom no million or media you can.
They cut my brother with a knife. They threatened to break our legs till we confess. They kept asking us where we had kept the laptop. If you say you don't have it, then they hit your back.
I'm a woman, dada, na car fan belts.
So that's the two boys there recounting their ordeal to us. Well, Ghana's Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice in December 2019 asked the three soldiers accused of brutalizing the four minors to pay compensation to the victims. The soldiers were also to face disciplinary action from the Ghana Armed Forces. Now, parents of the four boys say they have since received the 10,000 cedis each from the military. They, however, claim that none of the soldiers responsible for this incident has been prosecuted. Court correspondent Joseph Akable joins me with more on this. Joseph, tell us about the reliefs they are seeking from the court.
And so first, in terms of one of the mothers of the boys who is part of this particular action, they are asking for compensation for her, an amount of $5,000 because they say that in terms of the Shraj probe, there were no recommendations about her and there were no compensation paid to her. And the rest are also asking for 2,000 cedis each. 20,000 cedis actually, $20,000 each from them. They also want rehabilitation and psychosocial services, as well as a directive that Ghana legalized legislation that criminalizes and spells out punishment for all acts of torture, cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment. The court documents filed indicates that these Ghanaian nationals will be represented by lawyers from Ghana, Gambia, and Nigeria.
Okay, but we're yet to know when exactly this case will be heard.
That is so.
Okay, that's a court correspondent Joseph Akable bringing us details of that. But back here in Ghana, a businessman, Victor Aproko, is alleging that his home was raided by armed men wearing what looked like military uniforms on September 22. He has since reported the matter to the police. There's more in the following report.
Even I can't walk on my right leg because I was beaten mercilessly and thrown on such a hard ground. Because I still can't walk properly, and it's from that effect.
The pain from the events of September 22 is still fresh in his mind.
Suddenly, before I would see, a man came into the room. I don't know where he's from. I don't know him. I don't have any contact with him. Before I would see, he has jumped the house wall with this kind of metals on the wall and come to the door. So I was like, who are you? Then suddenly, before I was, then he came and hooked me, began to beat me. He was wearing military dress, began to beat me. What's wrong? What's wrong? He said, I have to pay rent. I said, what rent?
He, however, says he does not owe the landlord.
Secondly, what have I done that you are bringing me home to go and search? If it's rent issue, it's not an issue for police. And I don't own anybody. So there's nothing like any rent issue. So what is happening here, I'm making a police case against them for robbery. But then I believe how they are searching my room, something can get lost.
He alleges the men left with some of his valuables.
You said 19,000 cedis. And what other things?
And a watch, my wristwatch is a gold watch from Cartier Santos 18 karat gold.
The case ended up at the Kwabenya police station, but nothing has happened since then. The men, he says, were initially arrested, but they have since been released.
I want the military people be arrested and all those involved arrested and be prosecuted before a criminal court. Because, one, there was no case of emergency that military should jump a wall, a high wall, and enter the house, break the door, and enter and come and beat me and arrest me.
Well, that's the report of the Victor Aproko, the businessman in Ghana, alleging that his home was raided by armed men wearing what looked like military uniforms on September 22. We've been finding out from the police, especially the Accra Region Police Command, and they say they've called for the docket on this matter and will get to the bottom of this case. Let me take you to Parliament now, where the majority group there have described as troubling the Speaker's refusal to release Medina MP Francis Xavier Zosu to the Ghana Police Service to assist with investigations into alleged offences committed during the demonstration he led. According to the majority, the approach adopted by the Speaker seeks to undermine the rule of law. In a statement signed by the majority caucus, the NPP MPs cautioned the Speaker against allowing immunity to be construed as impunity. So yesterday it emerged also at that meeting with the IGP and CSOs that the police have already charged Francis Xavier Zosu for causing damage to state property, and then he's supposed to appear in other courts on the 8th of November. Parliamentary correspondent Parker Wilson joins us on the line with more on this. So what exactly are the majority groups seeking, Parker?
They are asking the Speaker to emulate the steps of his predecessors who have in times past cooperated with the police service and also members of parliament for them to assist the police in investigation. And so they cited the former Speaker of Parliament, Professor Michael Quay, who actually designated a conference hall for such interrogation so that they protect the sanctity of members of Parliament. And so for them, what the Speaker is doing is quite troubling and seeks to undermine the rule of law. But MFA, the minority side has been reacting to those statements. In fact, they are very disappointed. They've been taken aback by the statement put together by the majority. And if you look at the statement carefully, it's not signed by any member of the majority leadership. The question the minority is raising is, who signed the statement? In whose name? Even though I sought clarity from the deputy majority whip, that is Habib, who actually issued the statement. He says that even though there's no signature to it, the statement is issued in the name of the majority leader, that is Oseche Mensah-Bonsu. Now, from there, the minority is alleging that since the NPP side of the House never said a word when the Speaker issued a directive and indicated that this meeting is going to be a busy meeting and that it will be very difficult to release the Medina MP for the police to assist investigation, they are now coming to issue a statement to talk about it, and that is quite disappointing. And that they believe that it is the Jubilee House that has instructed them to distance themselves from the Speaker's ruling. We can listen to the Assembly Central MP.
That is the level of hypocrisy of this MPP group in Parliament. You see, have you read that statement?
I've read the statement
in detail. Signed. It is not even signed.
Is it the majority caucus?
I'm saying that it is not even.
I have sought clarity from the majority.
Who gave you?
I have spoken to the deputy majority,
and he says that it is coming from them.
Exactly.
That explains the level of the disaster of a state we live in under this government. That you have them who supported that decision. Mind you, this decision of the Speaker was taken weeks now. They never uttered a single word. You had a member of MPP, and I listened to that member on your station yesterday, who supported the position the Speaker has taken and the position of the NDC. So what has changed? What has suddenly changed? Because they have been called to the Flagstaff House. There is a design.
Is that your suspicion?
Oh, yes. There is a design by this government.
That the executive is manipulating?
They are manipulating them. There is a design.
That's a strong allegation,
That is a fact. The executive is manipulating not just the caucus, even the police. There is a design by this government, and the agenda is that arrest Susu. And after arresting Osusu, the fraudulent electoral commissioner who came out and asked the police to invite President Mahama over a statement, he made a statement which was in plea.
Well, so that's Murtala Mohammed, the Tamale Central MP, there interacting with my colleague, Paka Wilson. Well, Paka, has sitting begun, and do we have an official position of the Speaker on this particular development?
Sitting began just about 10 minutes ago, and you know that the Speaker of Parliament himself, Honorable Aban Baben, is not in town, so it is the second Deputy Speaker of Parliament who is chairing the meeting. Now, just before the commencement of business for the day, the minority Deputy Whip, that is Ahmed Ibrahim, raised concerns over the statement issued by the NPP. And his point was that just a while ago, the leadership of the House were in a caucus meeting and agreed that both sides of the House would not speak on this matter until the arrival of the Speaker of the House, that is Aban Babin, to deal with the situation. So he's surprised that the NPP side of the House would go ahead and issue the statement. Quickly, the Deputy Majority Leader, Alexander Feyomakin, responded that, well, the statement was issued before the meeting. And so he's asking the House, including the NDC members, to remain calm and ensure that they refrain from further escalating the matters and granting interviews to the media. However, they're waiting for the Speaker to return, and when he returns, of course, they're going to deal with the matter.
But in all this, Paka, where is Francis Xavier Susu?
Well, so the Member of Parliament, I can confirm to you, hasn't been to the chamber in the last 3 days. Tuesday, Wednesday, and today he's not in the chamber. So we don't know of his whereabouts. His colleagues explained to us that, well, he might not be in the chamber, but perhaps he might be engaged in some committee meetings, and that is why he's not in the chamber. The Deputy Majority Leader, Afeni Makin, just a while ago also said that he should feel free to come to the chamber and conduct his constitutional duties as has been given to him by his constituents from Medina.
That's our parliamentary correspondent, Kwesi Parker Wilson, there. Yesterday we heard his spokesperson, that's Francis Xavier Susu's spokesperson on Top Story, telling Evans Mensah that he's out on official parliamentary duties. Now, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta will be in Parliament on Wednesday, November 17, to present the government's economic policy and budget statement for the 2022 fiscal year. His focus will be to deal with a high government expenditure on salaries and interest payments, which takes more than 53% of government's expenditure. The budget deficit is expected to widen further from 38 billion in 2021 to close to 40 billion cedis in 2022. As we build up to the 2022 budget presentation, Joy News finds out what the implications of this will be for you. Deputy Head of our research desk, Winston Anwa, is here as we launch this build-up. Winston, first tell us about this particular build-up.
So for this build-up is purposely to inform the public on what to expect in the 2022 budget. Now, the research team will also be analyzing various ministries and their previous budgetary allocations, as well as their key achievements.
Well, so let's talk about the substantive issue now. Widening deficit is expected to rise up to about 40 billion cedis in 2022. What should we expect then in this budget?
Well, let me start with the focus of the 2022 budget, because according to the budget preparation guideline document published by the Ministry of Finance, the 2022 budget will focus on revitalizing and transforming the economy through digitalization, industrialization, competitive import substitution, export expansion, and the creation of decent jobs, particularly for the youth. Now, in terms of expenditure, government intends to spend an amount of 128.3 billion Ghana cedis in 2022, with expected revenue of 89.1 billion Ghana cedis. And this will leave a budget deficit of close to 40 billion Ghana cedis. And I guess the question will be, how is government going to fund this huge deficit? Look, if you do some further analysis of the data put out there by the ministry, government for the second time in a row is projecting to spend more on interest payments than compensation of employees. Now, the projected amount for interest payments in 2022 is 37.1 billion. And the projected amount to be spent on interest payments and compensation alone will represent about some 91% of what government seeks to raise in 2022, because we are looking at total expenditure, total revenue of 89 billion, and total expenditure on compensation of employees and interest payments of 81 billion Ghana cedis.
Thank you very much. That's the deputy head of our research desk, Winston Anwa. Joining us now is economist, Professor Peter Quartey, Director, Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research. We are grateful, sir, for your time here on the Midday News. So this is the situation we are faced with. 38 billion 2021, expected to rise up to 40 billion in 2022. I'm talking about the budget deficit to widen. How should we be approaching this, especially government?
Yes, good afternoon to you and to your discerning listeners. I think the issue we face, even pre-COVID and post-COVID, is the widening deficit, and how do we narrow the deficit? Revenue mobilization has been a challenge, although we've recently seen them toward digitization in order to make tax payments more efficient and more effective in raising the needed revenue. But I think the way forward will be to expand the scope. Not many small or micro firms are able to use these digital platforms. How do we expand the scope and allow them and rope them in the tax net so that they can also contribute their quota? We need to broaden the tax base. That's certainly the way to go. We cannot continue the way we are going and continue to borrow to finance the fiscal gap.
Okay, so just broadening, or we should expect more taxes or new taxes to be introduced?
I think new taxes will face mixed feelings from Ghanaians, but I don't think is the way to go. We ought to make the recent systems or structures more efficient, and also roping the informal sector, as I mentioned. There are also non-tax revenue measures or sources that we haven't really taxed adequately, something like property rates and some of the levies that the district assemblies charge, as well as making state-owned enterprises more efficient. so they don't depend on the kitchen, national kitchen, but rather contribute dividends and other things towards revenue generation.
Professor Kwate, just before I let you off briefly, in spite of the situation we are faced with, the public is expecting more roads and other developmental projects. Workers especially are asking for more pay. Do you think these aspirations will be met?
Well, certainly, to some extent, some of this will have to be met. There is a component of capital expenditure which each budget statement comes with. Sometimes around 10%, 20% of GDP, etc. So that certainly would have to look at the roads and other infrastructure. Workers' salary increments will have to be accommodated, but we ought to be circumspect. I think workers would also be moderate in their wage demands because we are not in normal time.
Okay.
We are gradually coming out of the woods.
We are grateful. That's Professor Peter Kwate, Director, Institute of ISE. That's the Statistical, Social and Economic Research. Well, organized labor has been looking ahead to the budget as well, and they've warned government to look elsewhere for solutions. Joy News editor Fred Smith has been engaging NAGRAT President Angel Kabonu, one of the groups demanding more pay.
The government should identify where the monies that culminated in the deficit go. Certainly, that amount of money cannot be set to come to emolument, salaries and compensation of workers. Absolutely not. Because I can tell you that over 80% of public sector workers in Ghana receive less than 1,500 Ghana cedis a month. 1,500 cedis a month. Something we all know is woefully inadequate and very unacceptable. So it certainly is not on salaries and emolument. It is going elsewhere that ought to be blocked.
President of NAGRAT, Angel Kabonu, there. This is the Midday News. So you will enjoy 99.7 FM and over 30 affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions, including Bewa Radio, in Yendi, Gaskier FM in Techiman, Jata FM in Karagan, KTU Radio in Kofu Radio. Our global audience, please download the My Joy Online app from Play Store and App Store to listen live to all our programs as well. And our top stories, Ghana dragged to ECOWAS court over alleged human rights violations of boys featured in Joy News documentary. We've been giving you details of that as they demand prosecution of the soldiers nearly 2 years after Sraj called for disciplinary action. I'll take a quick break. When we return, we have sports, and then students of Sugakopa Senior High School determined to end the 27-year-old NSMQ drought for the Volta and Oti regions.
Education is an ornament to prosperity and a refuge to adversity. And learning to learn is a kind of learnership we all need to acquire. So we are here to learn and to win.
Are you a philosopher?
It's Hollandia yogurt, a nourishing snack. Check. Vitality. Check. Taste. Check. Vitamins, calcium. Check. It's Hollandia yogurt. It's Hollandia yogurt. Hollandia yogurt.
Enjoy a nourishing boost of vitality with Hollandia yogurt. Available in strawberry and plain sweetened, fortified with vitamins A, B2, B12, and a source of calcium. Grab a pack of nourishment and level up. This advert is FDA approved.
Take a break from life and chores to relax and rehydrate. Freshen up throughout your day with the refreshing goodness of Voltic Natural Mineral Water, sourced from the heart of Ghana for true and safe refreshment.
Voltic, naturally, a product of the Coca-Cola Company. This advert is FDA approved.
Thanks for staying with us. It's the Midday News on Joy 99.7 FM. It's time for sports, and CK is demanding his payment. Up to how much?
He wants $300,000 compensation package.
Is that how much we owe him?
No, that's not how much we owe him. In total, he would demand a little over $700,000. But on October 7, Joy Sports' attention was drawn to exchanges between the Ghana Football Association and the former Black Stars coach. And we were made to understand that the GFA had written to him to tell him they were going to pay him $50,000 severance package for their decision to terminate his contract in September. On October 14, we were privileged to intercept the letter between the Ghana Football Association and the Ministry of Youth and Sport, but the letter did not ask the ministry to pay him the compensation package of $50,000. And just this morning, we've been made to understand that he wants $300,000 from the Ghana Football Association instead of the $50,000. They describe the $50,000 as woefully inadequate for a man who has served the country.
Interesting. And have we been hearing from the FA so far on this?
Yeah, I've spoken to the Secretary General of the Ghana FA, who has confirmed that, yes, indeed, CK wants $300,000 from the Ghana Football Association, but they'll go for a meeting to next week, probably next week, to have the issue resolved. There's a threat that CK might go to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, and the GFA wants to have the issue resolved as soon as possible.
Muftau Nabila with Sports. Thank you very much. It's time for our Drive Safe campaign.
Safe driving saves lives. Drive safe.
And this afternoon, the police administration is promising to increase police presence on the country's roads as a step to address the high carnage on the roads. In the Ashanti region alone this week, we've lost up to 28 lives in separate accidents, some with abandoned trucks, with some driving into it, killing a trader and the driver instantly. The Director General of the Police Motor Transport and Traffic Department, DCOP Francis Abuaji Nyako, says the service will also strive to enforce the two-driver regime for long-distance trips. Ohiming Teria of our security desk joins us on the line with more on his interaction with the Director General of the Police Motor Transport and Traffic Department. How exactly are they hoping to implement this, and did they say when?
Yes, MFA, according to DCOP Abuaji Nyako, the incidence of road crashes on our roads calls for pragmatic measures and efforts from stakeholders. And he says between now and beyond December, police will deploy more men on the country's highway to ensure drivers comply with road safety regulations. And beyond it, they also want to ensure that at least the two-driver regime introduced some time ago is enforced to the latter.
This system is already in place. The GPR2, the Pro Tour, they are aware of this system. That those going on long journeys, you have about two drivers. So when one is tired, one should take over. So those who don't comply are the recalcitrant ones. Because at least you should be able to comply with the laid down rules. So that by doing that, we'll be able to at least salvage the system. Valuable lives being lost, I think it's worrying. Are you getting my point? We'll revisit our advocacy program. And I know we have started. The Road Safety, National Road Safety Authority, the DVLA, and the MTTD, they have started the advocacy program. And the assurance is that we'll make sure we'll educate them very well, at least to address this carnage. Currently, the recalcitrant ones, even they are afraid now. Especially we've started all over, we've sent signals around. The two drivers regime is in place.
That's the Director General of the Police Motor Transport and Traffic Department, DCOP Francis Abuaji Nyako. Back here in the Greater Accra region, some 5 assemblies within the Greater Accra region have moved to demolish illegal structures along the Peshi Lagoon area. The exercise comes after many unsuccessful attempts to get the illegal tenants to remove their belongings. There's more of that subsequently. It's time for NSMQ. And students and authorities of Sogakopa Senior High School say they are determined to be the first school from the Volta and Oti regions to win the National Science and Maths Quiz Trophy. No school from the two regions has won the NSMQ title since its inception more than 20 years ago. Ketsa Senior High Technical School has always been the torchbearer for the regions, but has fallen short where it matters most, winning the ultimate prize. Maxwell Agbagba interacted with teachers and students of Sogasco ahead of their contest with Malco Girls and St. Paul's SHS.
The
contest itself has not started yet, but these ladies and gentlemen from Sogakoppa Senior High School are promising that they're going to win that particular contest. They're going to win the contest against EPC Maogo Girls and St. Paul's Senior High School. So this is how they arrived here at Nat Hall.
Yeah, we come here with Vim and we are going to win with Vim because destiny is our prosperity. Nothing else. We are going to win. Education is an ornament to prosperity and a refuge to adversity. And learning to learn is a kind of learnership we all need to acquire. So we are here to learn.
Well, so students there of Sogasco and earlier Bishop Herman beat Abo SHS and Inquanta SHS just by 37 points. Bobu there, they are through to the preliminary stage and they're waiting for their girls. Ola girls will be coming through shortly. But my colleague Manuel Kranting is in the Ashanti region for the Ashanti regional preliminary qualifiers. What's the situation there, Manuel?
So, MFR, in just the past couple of minutes, St. Hubert Seminary has beat Ya Santua Girls by 40 points. And so they are making their way into the 1-8 stage. But Ya Santua Girls have been telling me that they are hoping that they are able to make it into the list of 15 high-scoring schools. And that seems to be the strategy of most of the Ashanti regional schools, as they see that the movement of the contest from Accra to Kumasi will mean that they get better ground in the MFR.
And that's my colleague Manuel Kranting. And remember, Bishop Herman College is through to the 1-8 stage of the competition. And that's how we wrap up today's edition of the Midday News with me, Emefa Apau. There's more news when you log on to myjoyonline.com. Speaker's refusal to release Sosuti police is troubling. A departure from President Majority Caucus Ghana dragged to ECOWAS court over alleged human rights violations of boys featured in Joy News documentary. You are the one joking, not Susu and I. The film fires back at Sam Okujeto. That and more you can find on myjoyonline.com. Living Word with Pastor Mensa Otabil is up next. Do stay. Have a good afternoon.
Benjamin! Kweku! Nkwadai na wa he. Akwese.
Auntie Maggie, I don't know what you move from my anopotutu to say.
Pepesa wabua me. Na me de momo no. Emani sika.
Oh, Auntie Maggie Jaisa. Say momo aye easy cra. Obetimi afre wo momo. And no answer obe dial 170. That's all. Mami chiro.
Mema wakwaba ba MTN